Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to ECUS, the Economics Canvas Hub series. Our purpose is engender and enlighten students as seen through the eyes of our former students who've taken economics at Chabot College. Well, good morning, everyone. It's my very great pleasure to introduce Andreas Ford. Not only an excellent student, but a very, very colorful character. He's not a run-of-the-mill for sure. He has an avid interest in surfing. So, Andreas, tell us a little about yourself. Anything I may have left out that the students might want to hear about you?
No, you pretty much cut it. I grew up in the Bay Area. I lived in New York for about 4 years. Moved back here about six years ago, and been here ever since. And the first thing I did when I got back was enrolled in Chabot College.
I guess I can add to that. Now you got my interest. As I find fascinating about Andreas is that he's fluent in 4 languages. As I recall, it's Dutch, of course, English, French,
German.
and German, with some Spanish. And this is not due to mixed parenting. This is due to his exposure to your German mother. Is that correct?
Yeah, she is. She still only speaks German to me to this day.
Yeah. And then, of course, he has traveled extensively in Europe and keeps his languages up to date. So I guess my first question is, why did you intend to go to Chabot?
It was close.
From your 4 languages background, I want to introduce also the idea that you're now attending Berkeley.
I just graduated.
Oh, wow. So I'm a little behind. They graduated and you got a degree in what?
Earth System Science, which is within the geography department of all places.
And did you feel as though econ helped you prepare better in that discipline?
Yes. And the reason for that is that a lot of the classes you have to take, let's say when you take the Earth System Science classes at Berkeley, you're forced to take 2 classes in the other part of it, which they call like cultural or human geography. And they discuss a lot of like global development, things like that. And it's quite frankly incredibly political. And if you didn't have some sort of an economic background, you couldn't really, in my opinion, suss out through what's true and what's not, and what's relevant and what's not relevant. And in addition, one of the classes I took about change, climate disasters and how they're changing with climate change was the takeaway was pretty much if you don't make any of these solutions economically viable, they're never going to happen.
I think a lot of people would want to hear about, did you have any preconceived notions going into economics? Were there any fears or just unfounded reservations before you starting your economics classes?
Not really. I mean, there's nothing I worry too much about. I think that, I don't know, honestly, like my fears were pretty much reduced down to like any community college student's fears. Like, how much is this book? How much is it going to take in my free time? Like, how what's the professor going to be like? Like, what do I have to learn? Like, it's going to be that. I didn't really like think too much about it.
So it was a clean slate, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
So going into that clean slate, what were you pleasantly surprised about the discipline itself? I mean, were there aspects of the discipline that you just didn't anticipate its benefits to?
I didn't. That's a good question. I didn't expect to gain as much of an understanding of the sort of current economic system we live in as I did. Once you start understanding things like comparative advantages, that was a huge one. For example, you start sort of to understand why any sort of global trade makes sense. And I think that, just being able to sort of turn on the news and, understand even just, a few percent more of what you used to is a really, really big difference. And I think that um, that's something that you might figure out eventually, but it's a lot easier if you sort of have some sort of mathematical economic foundation to go off of.
Yeah, you bring up a really good term, environment. You said the economic environment, and one of the things that I try to stress is every country has a different economic environment. And if you go to a new country, if you're not aware of that environment, you're making choices that could be completely inappropriate, right? It's almost like hiking. If you go hiking and you are dressed for winter weather and it's 95 degrees in Death Valley, you're not properly prepared for the environment in which you are making your choices. So I really like the term that you use, environment, because if you're not aware of it, it's tough to thrive.
On a similar yet different topic, hearkening back to your econ principles, are there any principles you can think of that forever have changed how you look at your life socially, professionally, or in any other way?
Give me an example.
Well, one of the things I try to pass on to students is the concept of opportunity cost, and that is that when you buy something for $50, it isn't just the $50; it's what you give up because you made that purchase, particularly for consumption purchases. That ring a bell?
Yeah, of course. Okay, I was just trying to figure out how you're posing that. Yeah, opportunity cost is huge. Um, I mean, I think that's something that consciously or unconsciously, like we do in everything, right? I mean, the opportunity cost of going to the beach. How much do I like going to the beach versus how much do I like sitting in the 3 hours of traffic, getting there and getting back, or you know, um, anything like that, right? Like, where do you want to live? Well, if you're going to live over here, you're going to miss out on these things in the other place, for example. So I think that that's something that it does sort of revolutionize the way you think, because you realize that, I don't know, at least I realize, like, you're never sitting still, right? You know what I mean? If I'm not doing one thing, I'm definitely going to be doing something else. And so I'm always going to be missing out on something. And especially in a current cultural climate where you can always feel like you're missing out on something, it really helps to make a decision on pretty much anything, major or minor, right? Because at least you're aware of the trade-off. And I think that's something that makes econ really powerful, is that you gain this new level of awareness of, like, okay, there is a trade-off, and that's okay, because maybe it's the better trade-off, right? Like, instead of the baseline being I need everything and I can't lose anything else, you just have to think, okay, no, whatever I do, it's going to cost me something, right? My opportunity cost. So let's just try to pick the biggest reward for what I'm missing.
Just it's a little bit related to put things in perspective, but as I understand it, you're applying for a PhD program.
Yeah.
And and where are you applying now where you think you might be accepted?
I didn't get into Stanford or Berkeley, so I'm still waiting to hear from a few other places. And I haven't really made up my mind yet, to be totally honest with you.
You're pretty confident you might also try Germany, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of options out there, and most of those aren't due till like June or something. So I've got a nice window to think about it. And I did that on purpose, right? I knew when the dates would roll by, and I said, okay, I'm not going to think about it until I hear previous decisions and then move on to the next thing.
Don't you think, though, whether you're the best or you're the worst, that the big factor is how satisfied you are with what you're doing?
I couldn't agree more. I know a lot of successful people who are truly miserable. Look at how many rock stars, kill themselves or die or whatever. It's like you'd think they have everything they want, and they don't.
And people don't realize that, and this is something that I preach in my class, is that the spiritual aspect of microeconomics, where the whole point of economics is to make better choices to achieve a goal that you want. But the critical thing is, how do you know what you want? And
I think
there's a spiritual aspect to that, right?
I think I couldn't agree with you more, actually. And it's funny you should say that, because I think that and this is sort of my two like biggest resentments against economics are that people think it's political and people think it's all about money.
Yeah.
And it's neither. I mean, of course it's about money, but it's about resources, and if that resource happens to be money, then it's that. But it's also it's incredibly apolitical. It's math. Like math is not political.
It's a foundation that many things rest upon, and money and politics is just one of those things.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that that's something that, like, right, if you don't have the goal to get out of it, there's not too much point in doing it. And I've seen, me personally at least, and I've done this myself, right, is I've burned out or seen people burn out because you keep chasing this, or you keep learning about it, and it's like, yeah, you can maybe hack a year, even 2, but once you start getting into like really difficult analysis and a lot more sort of heavy academic work in it, if you don't have a goal or some reason to do it, like, I don't know, personally, like I'd tap out, but I had to learn that about myself the hard way too, right? That if like I don't have a goal to work towards, I'm not going to do it. But also I think that that's something that plays into personal happiness. I think that it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, your current circumstances matter a lot, of course, but I think also like your short-term future circumstances, like if you think, or you have this goal of like, I'm going to do these things in the next 2 years, and you do them, like you tend to feel pretty happy about it. At least I do.
I would just love to hear about how economics has played something for you personally and recreationally, because you are a surfer, right? And you're in earth science. So I guess global warming is something that you must think a lot about, right?
Constantly.
Yeah, and I'm sure economics plays a role in that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about this, and not to even mention the pandemic. I thought there's a lot of things in there that I think could be maybe not rectified, but at least helped by economics. And I mean, one thing is surfing is interesting because it's competition for a scarce resource that really can't be bought, right? Like you can't, you can be as rich as you want, you can be as good as an economist. Like if you're not at the right place at the right time, or even if you are, it's just tough luck, right? Like I was at the beach the other day, 5 minutes into me showing up, waves were gone. It's like not my fault. I prepared for it, and that was something that how is it regulated? Well, it's access, it's people, and it's skill level, right? And as a general rule, it's in that order. It's access. Like if you don't have access, you can't go. There's too many people, you can't surf, and if you're not good enough, doesn't matter if it's the best wave in the world with no one there, you also can't do it. So it's sort of interesting to see how something like that gets regulated. And of course, I guess economics plays in a little bit. You do have to have free time, you have to be able to get there, you have to have some minor amount of equipment. But yeah, that's something that I've noticed.
Listen, we have to go now because we have another interview at 30. But I want to thank you very, very much. You've been through the mill, obviously, pre-college. Then you've been successful academically. What simple advice would you give to brand new students at 18 years old who are going to attempt Chabot College for the first time?
Take fun classes. Take something you think is going to be fun. And if that's econ, take econ. If it's history of medieval literature, take that.
Well, my final comment, of course, it's econ.
Yeah. Back to
Andreas,
the genius.
Andreas, thank you so much for taking your time.
No problem.
Talk to us. We wish you the best in your PhD studies.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.